set to go 4 rounds. Former Cuban national team member Glendy Hernández, 6-0 in his career, facing Ken Frank. There is Glendy Hernández, 31 years old, from Guantanamo, Cuba. 6-0 with 3 knockouts, had 250 amateur fights. Back in '98, was the national amateur champion. Came to Miami and settled there in '09. And there is Ken Frank, 6'4", 287 pounds, from Canada, 4-1-1 with a couple of knockouts.
Okay, gentlemen, trunks here are good. Trunks here are good. Anything below that line is a foul. I want to remind you, protect yourself at all times, obey my commands at all times. God bless, touch up, God bless.
Hernández is an inch taller, but weighs 49 pounds less than Ken Frank, 238.5 to 287.
Be sure to grab those buckets off, okay? Thank you.
Frank took off some weight since turning pro at 292. His last fight he was down to 283. Tonight went up to 287 again. Only loss from Frank was by knockout to a much more experienced fighter, although a limited raw one as far as technical skills, but Ty Fields knocked him out in 3 rounds up in Canada, and Fields much more experienced.
Opened up his career at 292. I've never heard you utter the words somebody opened up their career and something north of 290 was what came out of your mouth.
Exactly.
292.
And Hernández, the opposite as far as weight, has put on weight since turning pro, since coming to this country from Cuba. Turned pro at 220. Last fight was up 22 pounds to 242. Trimmed off 3.5 pounds, coming in 238.5 tonight. You think about Hernández escaping a dictatorship and coming to these shores, to a free country. He's put weight on. You don't want to see a guy put weight on. You figure maybe he's eating better than he was in that impoverished country, or at least eating more. Late age for Hernández to turn pro. Turn pro 29, he's 31. But that can be understood when you're coming from Cuba. No professional boxing in Cuba. He had to escape there a year and a half ago, come over here and get an opportunity at 29 to turn pro.
Frank loose with that left arm, and Russell Moore does just that.
Frank is big, and he's a bit slow. Very ponderous, very one-dimensional. You know where Frank's coming at all times. Straightforward. And you know where to find him. Use that jab, shoot the right hand if you're Hernández.
And a round 1 scheduled for 4. For Friday night fights tonight, there is Yuriorkis Gamboa. We got Nonito Donaire taking pictures. We got Yuriorkis Gamboa coming out to watch the fights. He's coming off that sensational 5 knockdown performance against Jorge Solis. But the would-have been super fight against Juan Manuel Lopez, well, Lopez was just TKO'd. So now Gamboa, they were trying to set up that fight. But there'll be big fights in the near future for Gamboa, of course.
Gamboa's money coming out of his pocket when he saw
did he ever?
Gomez going down. More disappointed than anybody.
He lost. Obviously, Lopez lost a lot, but there's number 2 in terms of who lost the most that night. Yuriorkis Gamboa.
Gamboa is just one of those sensational talents that you don't get a chance to see too often, and he's settled down in the pros, and he's becoming better and better as he gets calmer and more comfortable with himself and lets the fight come to him a little bit. But as far as pure ability, speed, power, explosiveness, Gamboa has it.
And he is watching his fellow countryman, Glendy Hernández, in the silver trunks with black trim, a 6-0 heavyweight, taking on Ken Frank.
I don't get the feeling we're watching future world champions here.
No.
I mean, Hernández comes from that great heritage of tremendous amateur fighters in Cuba that have had so many amateur champions, and especially in the heavyweights, guys like Tefilio Stevenson and Felix Savone, 2 of only 3 fighters in the history of boxing to win 3 gold medals in the Olympics. The other, the great Laszlo Papp from Hungary. But Hernández, who
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but he retired undefeated due to obviously the Iron Curtain and the communist regime forcing it into his pro career.
Yeah, he did, and he would have. I think it's not too much of a stretch of a statement to say that he would have been a world champion if he had been in any other country. And as I was saying, Hernández obviously not succeeding, not following in that great heritage. It doesn't appear to be, even though he is 6-0 with 3 knockouts. You just don't see him applying himself the way that you would expect somebody if they have a real bright future in front of them. Especially somebody that comes, as we said, from the great history of those great fighters in Cuba.
Planted that right hand and then fell in against the 287-pound Ken Frank.
Both these fighters over 30 years old.
Coming to the end of 2. Ken Frank and the Cuban Glendy Hernández. It is a busy next 7-8 days here in Vegas on the boxing scene as we are live at the Cosmopolitan Outdoors, and then we will head down the strip next week. Teddy's going to have a very busy week. You're going to be on First Take on ESPN2 at 10 a.m. on Wednesday to start ESPN's coverage of Pacquiao-Mosley. Then Friday with Brian Kenny live at the weigh-in, which will be on ESPN and ESPN News at 6 o'clock as Pacquiao and Mosley will get on the scale. Then Saturday, of course, Friday Night Fights that Friday night, which we'll be talking about Pacquiao and Mosley all night long. And then Saturday, Brian Kenny and Teddy live round-by-round coverage, which is so important to so many of our fans who don't have the opportunity to see some of these major pay-per-views. Of course, you can tune in to Friday Night Fights at 10 o'clock from the Mandalay Bay here in Las Vegas. Diego Magdaleno will headline that card. But as you get closer to what will be a busy work week for you and you think about Pacquiao-Mosley next week, have your thoughts changed on that fight at all?
Not really. I mean, on first glance, it just looks like Pacquiao just too fast, too young, too busy. Not to mention he's a southpaw, not to mention all the great confidence he has. He is going in there with a very experienced fighter who's been a world champion in multiple divisions, a fighter with terrific ring character, and a fighter who naturally was the bigger guy early in his pro career, but a guy who's 40 years old and has not shown lately what you would think he would need to be competitive in this fight. But you never know. You have a guy like Mosley who can punch, who has the experience. We always say, and I always say, timing can negate speed. Mosley understands that going into this fight, and he will be prepared to think along those lines.
He had that moment against Mayweather. Could he have a moment that would shock the world against Pacquiao?
And Mosley loves to throw that straight right hand, likes to set it up, and no better punch to have to throw against the southpaw than a nice straight right hand.
I'd like to see some straight right hands out of Glendy Hernández here.
You'd like to see less of the grabbing by Hernández. You can see the 287-pound Frank give him a little bit of an excuse to grab, but Hernández, less of an excuse to be doing what you're seeing right now, grabbing and falling in on the inside and not looking to do what he should be doing, moving his hands.
Fourth and final round, and I am very thankful for that.
I think a lot of people will join you in that thankfulness.
We saw Highland Williams Jr. move his mark to 14-0 tonight. Had a great visit with Zab Judah, talking about the future plans of some big fights that could come down the road this summer. And then Carlos Molina looked very strong tonight with a TKO victory over Alan Conyers. 18th win now for Carlos Molina. And here the fourth and final round between Glendy Hernández and Ken Frank, who have been waltzing and hugging and unimpressing their way. There's a short right hand by Hernández and then more of the grabbing.
Hernández left Cuba 1.5 years ago, left his 7-year-old son behind in Cuba. The thing that many of the athletes that leave dictatorships, such as Cuba, wind up having to do to get freedom and to have a chance to earn wealth for their family. They have to leave their family behind sometimes. Very difficult. If Frank was inclined to throw an uppercut, he might have some success. And you can see why. As Hernández acting the way that maybe you would think you'd see Frank acting, falling in and grabbing and looking tired. You can see exactly that. Frank looking to throw that left uppercut, not snapping it, pushing it a little bit, but finding the draw of Hernández on the inside. Frank needs to do one of two things. Time Hernández as he leans in. He's seen enough of it. He knows that Hernández is going to fall in and look to grab, as he just does. Time that. Expect him to fall in and prepare to launch the uppercut, or take a little half step back and create room for Hernández to fall into that punch. The referee showing great discipline right here, not stopping this fight. If I'm the referee in there, I might be tempted to grab a chance when I see somebody complain about a headbutt. I might say, okay, this is a good excuse to stop this. Go. Not the most enticing fight in the world.
Obviously, the main event was cut short with the TKO, so Hernández and Frank getting some airtime here tonight. I will guarantee you that they will not get airtime in the future.
No, I would second that notion.
We'll come back and get the decision here in Vegas.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas, we go to the judges' scorecards after 4 rounds of boxing. Judge Ricardo Ocasio and Lisa Giampa are in agreement, scoring it the same 39-37, and Judge Dick Houck scores it 40-36. All in favor of your winner by unanimous decision, and still undefeated, Glendy Hernández.
So Hernández is now 7-0. As we told you, next week, Friday Night Fights, we'll be right here